Takebacks now, we are officially live. So whatever we say is out there in internet and network land.
Permanent, permanent.
Permanent. It is on our permanent records, whatever we say tonight. All right, folks. So, um, we're going to sit here and the normal deal kind of ramble for a few minutes while folks, get their live notifications and all that on Facebook. And we're also broadcasting on YouTube as well. So, once folks kind of figure out that we're online. Anyway, then we'll ramble for a few minutes, do a countdown, and then we'll come back in. And we got plenty of stuff to talk about. We got some. I don't want to give it away yet, but we got some upcoming tournaments and some fundraising deals, Mike.
Yes, we got plenty of tournaments. There's no shortage of those around here. And then we got one that's near and dear to me, the Reelin for Kids. So it benefits the foster children here in Northwest Louisiana. I've been pushing pretty hard to get everybody I know out to fish this tournament. So um, one of the benefits is that you make money for fishing it, and we can talk about that later.
Hey, perfect. Yeah, so we got plenty of details on that. I'm also, and if you can hang around as long as you want tonight, but I'm going to mention the upcoming wildlife and fisheries fishing license and hunting license fee changes, and then I'm going to get on my soapbox for a little bit about sharing fishing information. Is that a good thing to do or not? But all right, in the meantime, so I'm going to go ahead and hit our countdown. So, Mike, since you're new to the show or whatever, you'll see a countdown for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back into the show and we'll get started on the details. We've already got about 5 or 6 people watching. Folks, y'all make sure and tag your friends, share this out, send a text message or whatever. Hey, Mike Riley. Hello there, Pat Gunderson. Glad to see y'all. I'm going to hit the countdown, so that gives y'all time to grab something to drink, go make some popcorn. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk about fishing. Okay, so we made it through a countdown. You made it through a countdown. You're still here. And we were having a pretty good conversation
Yeah.
during the countdown. I think we got about, I don't know, about 10 people watching so far. So we appreciate everybody watching. Let me see if I can get my chat messages up here so I can see what's going on. But I wanted to kind of continue a little bit of our conversation that you and I were having during the countdown about getting away, because you had asked me where some of that footage was at the
hmm
very beginning, first minute or two of running the countdown, and I mentioned that it was actually up in Carter Chute, which not a lot of people, there are actually lots of boats that go through there, but it's mostly mud boats and some pontoons and jet skis and stuff like that. But you had mentioned getting away is sometimes good.
Yeah, I like to get away from the crowds. It's I don't want to say it's annoying or anything like that, but when you're in an area, well, Clinton Lake, when it's popular, in the springtime, it feels like you can't turn and work a tree line without somebody already being on it or different things. And you get to a point where you're afraid to move. It's like, well, let's pack up and go somewhere else. Well, there's going to be 5 or 6 other boats right where you want to be, so you don't want to cut anybody off and cause trouble. So I've run up to Pine Island Pond or get way up in the river somewhere and try and get away from folks to not secret, because there are no secrets anymore, but to get away from people.
Yeah, and that's funny because I mentioned before the countdown that I was going to get on my soapbox a little while later about sharing fishing information and all that. But that's kind of my point. Look, I run a fire engine red gel boat. I can't really hide. I was telling you I got one place that I can kind of sort of hide, but other than that, there's not much. I mean, on Caddo, you can get up in the trees and it's it gets kind of hard to see people and all that. But you're right, there aren't any secrets. It's a public lake. I
Mhm.
try to have etiquette. If I come up to an area that I really want to fish and you're already there, then, I'll say, hey, do you mind if I go fish this section, or which way are you headed? And, try to have a little etiquette about it and all that. But the fact is, it's a public lake.
Yeah, absolutely. And short of, tournament rules of a boat being anchored and trying to stay away from them, put the trolling motor down and go fishing. It is what it is when it comes to that. And I think COVID and a lot more people getting fishing licenses. I mean, that's all great for the industry. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. I mean, more people fishing is better for everything. I mean, that's what we strive to do in the beginning. It was like, hey, we need to get more people fishing. Let's make this sport more popular. And now you get there, and some people are like, well, maybe there's too many people fishing, or I can't
Yeah.
believe how crowded the boat ramp is, or it's like, well, this is this is bass fishing. This is where we wanted to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to grow the sport or not? And I've been heavily involved, on the high school side and with the junior league and some of these other organizations. And I always want to grow the sport because the fact of the matter is, yeah, we had a little bit of growth during the COVID deal and more license registrations and all that. And, we've had some tackle shortages and, issues getting new boats because of the product and supply chain and all that. But the fact of the matter is, bass fishing's not really growing. That just leveled us off.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Uh, I think on the, I don't want to take back, like you said at the beginning, no take backs, but with the growth that we've had, I think that's part of the reason some of our tackle has gotten so expensive.
Right.
Some of our boats have gotten so expensive because people are paying it, and I think you're in a way all that's coming to a level point. Oh, it starts coming down a little bit along with them gas prices.
Yeah, no kidding. At $4 a gallon. I mean, I'm running a 98 champion with a 98 or 99 225 Optimax, and it does pretty good. It's 20 something year old boat, and it's pretty good on gas. But I like to keep my foot in it, and I've had to learn to kind of keep my foot out of it the last couple of months with the gas prices. So.
Oh yeah, we all bought them to go fast. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll get back to talking some more about that. But let me kind of formally introduce you to those that are watching, and folks, we appreciate everybody that's watching. Make sure and tag your friends and share this out and all that sort of thing on social media. Even send folks a text message if you need to, because we got some good stuff to talk about tonight. So my guest is good friend Mike Cork, and Mike, I don't know how you got started in fishing, but I've known about ultimatebass.com since I want to say the 90s, maybe the late 90s.
Yeah, 98.
Yeah. So kind of give us a little history on that.
Well, ultimatebass.com. Well, I got into bass fishing. I was 4 years old. That's my first picture. I vaguely remember catching this fish, but I was four and it was a 4 pounder, and I outfished the old man. So I guess it was hooked since then. But Ultimate Bass got started actually in 1994. We called it 1994 Team Bass was the name. And we were out west. I was in the military, stationed at Beale Air Force Base, California. And the wife and I we fished an invitational, and it was fun. We had a good time, and there just weren't very many of them. I mean, this was years ago, and so hey, well, we could do this, and we held several tournaments, and then it didn't take long before I got orders to out here. Uh, so we got out here, and we were looking around, there wasn't a whole lot going on. Well, let's try it again. But we came up with the name Ultimate Bass and built a website just for results. That's all it was for, was to list results for the members to see where they were at, see their standing, see how they did in their last tournament. Uh, Man, and that did not take long. It was a year that bounced into several states. Another year we were doing the whole United States, and then in another year we had people from Korea and Australia and everywhere coming to the site. We had our forum, and then we jumped into our full-blown website where I've got 6 or 7 guys writing blogs. We've got articles. We've got interviews, news. I forget. I want to say there's about 7,000 articles.
Wow.
On the site in all the different categories.
Yeah.
So,
That's a lot of content, and like I said, I was familiar with it back in the 90s. I was actually, fishing for a living and building boats of all things, and so I got pretty familiar with it because I've always been into technology and the internet and all that, and so just kind of, full circle interesting that, you're the guy, you and your wife, that started that, and now here we are in 2022, and I'm doing a live Facebook video and have you on as a guest. So
yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's,
So,
yes, ma'am. Hey,
okay, yeah, no problem. All right, so tell me what else you're into, because I know you got where I'm really familiar with you is the Northwest Tournament News and the newsletter that you send out, and I think you also, what do you, clean reels, do reel repair, or what all do you do?
yeah, I do some reel repair on the side for buddies and different things. A while back I had a full blown reel repair business, but um, I've kind of slowed it down to where I can just cover, help my friends out and stuff. And then I do the newsletter. Basically, that evolved out of a all these guys, all these different tournaments. People were like, "Man, I would have fished that if I knew about it," or "I would have done that if I knew about it," or "Man, I wish somebody would publish this stuff somewhere." And I was like, "Well, they could put it in the forum, but they apparently aren't seeing it." So I had like, I guess it was about 20 guys that I had their personal emails. So I just started sending them information like, "Hey, there's a tournament coming up, benefit tournament coming up," and the they would send it back, say, "Hey, I really don't want my name or my email address out there so everybody can get it," kind
Right.
of thing. So the wife helped me again. We got into a email server, and I just started adding more emails, and before long, we're up over 1,000 people on it now. These are all Northwest Louisiana anglers, uh, and I put all tournaments that people will send them to me. I dig for some, but I mean, the clubs, I'll gladly put their tournaments out there, but they got to send it to me. You know,
Right.
when the next event is, I can't go tracking them all down. And then all the benefits and the opens and all that stuff, I make sure those get out. Well, it took a couple years, but now everybody that has an open will have become the man that they need to say. You know, if somebody will tell them, "Hey, you need to call Mike. Make sure you get your information in that newsletter." So I can help coordinate some of that. Stop the stepping on each other, so we can spread
Right.
them out a little bit. And it still happens. I mean, the Reelin for Kids is I think um, Shane Nugent said we ended up on the same day as him. I'm not sure. Maybe they changed it. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, let's see. As a matter of fact, I've got to put the information together and get that posted out for the junior league. But yeah, their tournament is going to be. Let me make sure I get this right because I'm sure Shane's watching and will be watching. But yeah, originally the junior league was going to have their tournament on Cypress, but Cypress Lake wouldn't accommodate the junior league because of the holiday weekend, and so it's been moved over to Bistano. But yeah, that is this weekend. So.
Right. Yeah, and
And
it'll be
sometimes,
head
look,
up with the weekend. So
yeah, you can't really avoid that because there's only so many weekends in a month or in a year, and everybody wants to have a tournament. You know, I mean, so
yeah,
sometimes it's inevitable.
absolutely. We picked this weekend thinking, and you pick them as early as you can and hope not to step on each other. It still happens. But we picked this thinking, well, nobody else will have one on Memorial Day weekend. And we kind of hedged our bet thinking, well, hopefully we don't lose anglers because it's Memorial Day weekend too.
Right.
And then you pick Caddo because it's a boat road lake, so we don't have to worry about as much traffic. There'll still be traffic. I mean, it's a
Right.
lake, so
Yeah.
but it'll be a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know that Shane wanted to have it on Cypress anyway. After about 9:30, it gets miserable out there.
Yeah, the wake boats and all that would make it miserable. You're right about Caddo. One thing about Caddo, there are people that water ski and tube and all that, but not very many because, you got to run the boat roads and it's not,
Mm,
unless you're up the river, it's not really conducive to it except for a couple of spots. And so, yeah, it's a little better for fishing and all that for tournaments. Anyway, all right,
mm.
so let's move into. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do. So let's talk real quick about if somebody wants to get a copy of your newsletter or wants to get on your email list. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, really, the easiest way is to go to Facebook and type in NW for Northwest, and then so it's NW Louisiana Tournament Report or Tournament Fishing Report or newsletter. I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
it would be Northwest Louisiana Tournament Newsletter.
All
Um,
right.
so it's NW for Northwest, and then Louisiana Tournament Newsletter. And then that'll give them a link that they can actually sign up for the newsletter,
Mm-hmm.
or they can just follow the Facebook page. I'd prefer they get the newsletter because then we can add it to,
Right.
get them, they get to see it every Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning. Um, but it's still good to have them on Facebook because that's where the communication happens. I put
Right.
the information out, but if you want to say, well, you know, what's the entry fee? Because maybe I didn't have that, or is it because we're coming into summertime? There's a lot of three fish tournaments. That's important to a lot of the anglers to know. Especially on paddle. Hey, I can catch 3 overs, but catching that 5 overs, it can be a little tough for me. So
Yeah,
we
that can
more
make
than just three fish tournaments.
that seems to be the story of my life is coming up with the fourth if I'm by myself or the fifth over if I'm in a
Yeah, in a
team
team,
tournament on
uh,
Caddo.
first and last. That's always the hardest.
Yeah, I'm going to throw something out of the blue at you. So the ladies, that fish there, what was it, 3 or 4 weeks ago or whatever, they do paper fish, which is, they've got a scale, a reference chart for length of fish, and they get, and each length is assigned X number of pounds, whatever it may be. And, while it's not perfect, it gives them something to go by. Have you ever fished a tournament where they do that, or have you thought about
Not
that?
quite like that. Well, years ago, Twin Cities Team Club, it's been around almost as long as Ultimate Bass. Um, we we tried that for
Mm-hmm.
paddle, and it worked out pretty well. But I think there was a trust issue. You know,
Right.
somebody could get on that slot fish and just whack 10 of them and really run up the numbers. Um, and then what I have done though, and it's been in the forum, um, is an inches tournament where you take your best five, and this is pretty popular amongst the kayak tournaments where they fish strictly for inches. Your best five fish in inches, 19 3/4, or it's generally rounded off to the quarter inch. But
Right.
I fish that every month. We have one in our forum that's nationwide, and you got to be pretty stout. Everybody shoots for the Century Club. Your five fish are 20 inches better gives them over 100 inches, and if you ain't got over 100 inches, you ain't doing very well.
Yeah, I've watched some of those kayak tournaments, and I mean, they really catch them. And it's
Oh
very
yeah.
interesting the way that they do that. Of course, a lot of them are using apps to be able to submit them, and like
Hmm.
identifiers and all that. And on the women's, the Lady Bass Anglers Association, their check and balance is they've got the pro in the front of the boat and the co-angler in the rear, and so that's kind of the check and balance because they're not fishing as a team,
Right.
and so they have to sign off on any of the other fish. But look, it's like I told some of the tournament folks around here, 90 95% of the tournaments around here are completely honor system anyway.
Oh yeah.
I
No, I mean
mean,
I think there's absolutely, but I think the anglers police themselves pretty good. I
right.
mean, it's especially with his, the first cast. You
Mm-hmm.
know, take the team tournament, HW Team Trails deal where it's first cast. We got 100 boats, everybody's on the water. I mean, everybody's looking at everybody else. If somebody were to cast too soon, surely they'd get caught. You worry about somebody picking some fish out of a basket or something like that. There's two things that stop that, in my opinion. One is a fisherman; he's got to brag, and if he, it's happened before. The guys that cheat, they eventually talk about it to the wrong person, and they get caught. Um, and two, other anglers it's their money. They want to
Yeah.
know you took it fair and square. So if they even think there's something going on, you're gonna have somebody watching you pretty close. So, but yeah, no, most of it's honor system, and you know, and on that same token, 99% of our anglers are good people. I mean, there's a sense of pride, and uh, personally, I couldn't think. I mean, how could you say a good job to myself if I won and I had cheated? So I mean, it's you got to be proud of what you do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, the word travels very fast. I mean, it traveled fast before social media days, but now with social media, word travels ridiculously fast. And
Oh
so
yeah.
if somebody does get caught cheating, I mean, word gets out, and their reputation at that point is pretty much over.
Oh yeah, especially locally, and that would be a website I wish I could build one that we could put cheaters on from all over. So
Hmm.
that somebody in Louisiana couldn't move over to Texas or whatever. That all tournament directors could have access to it or whatever. But yeah, social media, the game wardens love it because people take pictures of way too many doves or you
Yep.
know wrong antlered deer or whatever. But the same thing happens at bass fishing. Guys will take pictures of this nice 7 pounder that had this funny. They didn't realize it had this little dot on the back corner of a skin color issue or something. Well, then that fish shows up in a tournament 2 days later.
Right.
So I've seen that happen, and it is what it is. But you put money out there, it's going to happen. But the anglers are watching. So
Yeah, they're watching. All right, so I did pull up the Northwest Louisiana Tournament News Facebook page, and Brandon says that he signed up and wanted to remind you that when you get a chance after the show or whatever, his deal, he said, is pending or something. So he said, please accept him when we get done.
Okay.
So anyway, we got you at least, one person signed up. But anyway, so this is the Facebook page, folks. If you go there, you'll see that Mike posts quite a bit of information. Of course, I share stuff, and a lot of the other tournament folks and bass fishing folks share stuff on this page as well. You can also go there, and let's see, you got a deal there to sign up for the newsletter, so you can click there as well and go ahead and get signed up for that. Now, speaking of social media, and I'm going to kind of jump topics for a second, and then we'll move into the benefit tournament. So, the Bass Life Association, or Bass Life Associates,
near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of, there's an interesting time with me because I've been bass fishing since the 80s. And a real good friend of mine, and was kind of my fishing mentor for many years, is a guy named Dana Walker out of Ruston. And I remember when Bass Life first started up, I think it was back in the early or mid 90s maybe? When did Bass Life get fired up?
Well, actually, Bass Life itself was, early 90s. It was the Bass Life. It was a different name before that. It was actually a national organization.
Mm-hmm.
And they were sending all their money. Boy, I can't believe I've blanked that. Anyway, they would hold their banquets. It was kind of like BU, where you had to send your money off, whatever you made, to this national organization. Well, no money came back to Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So after a few years of that, they kind of shut that off and started their own. That would be Bass Life. So, it's been around for quite a while. I just hate to think of the 90s as being a long time ago.
Well, we both have a little bit of gray hair. It's like my kids tell me, Dad, everything you did was back in the 90s. It's right. old school. So, but the past couple of years have not been great for Bass Life because Bass Life relies heavily on donations for the Replica program and the other things. I think the fish hatchery stuff that Bass Life is involved in. And with the COVID situation, having the Bass Life Banquet, which I think is a primary fundraiser, last 2 years has pretty much been a no-go, except this year. This was, the first one in 2 years, I think?
Yeah. Yes. And that's as simple as it gets. The fundraiser, the banquet is our only fundraiser. The COVID said, can't have banquets, or the governor said we can't have banquets. That's up to everybody's personal opinion. Anyway, so right. Yes, this year they allowed us to put 10 people at one table again, and we got to have one. We didn't have as many tables sold. We had a lot more walk-ins, but folks that came to spend. We had a banner year. And I think everybody wanted to get the program back up and running. There was a lot of quality fish that were caught over the last 2 years that didn't get a replica because we just simply couldn't afford to carry the program on.
Well,
things going. You're right. The hatchery and aquatic education and different things that we do, those programs still maintained, and they kind of sucked what we had. We just didn't have time or money for the replica program.
So speaking of the replica program, what is the process? So if I go catch a 10-pounder on Caddo, what is the process, or what do I need to do? So I'm out on the lake. I've caught this fish. I've already texted my buddies and, picture of it and all that. What do I need to do at that point?
Well, after that, you need to take it to one of the weigh stations. I know Caddo, there's two. The sheriff's substation, which that one's a little difficult. One, you got to have somebody there, or two, hope they're close enough that when you call, because they got a phone thing, call, that they can get there quick enough. Or you can go over to, I don't know the name of it now. Pelican.
Is it Buzzard Bay now?
Buzzard Bay. Mm-hmm. Is it Buzzard Bay Lodge now? Or I'm not sure what the name of the marina there is.
I don't know. Let me see. Keep talking. I'm going to see if I can pull them up on Facebook real quick.
You take it to them, tell them you got a big fish and you'd like to weigh it, and you'll get a bag. And just like you would for a tournament, bring him up in some water. And he's got certified scales there. And And, it's right there on the water, so you can drive right up to him in your boat and walk up and tell him you got a big fish. He'll get everything set up, and you go back, get your fish in a bag, keep it, wet, keep it completely submerged, hopefully. We all got tournament bags pretty much. And take it up there, he'll weigh it. He's got the paperwork. He'll down, and he'll sign it saying that he certified it, and hand all that paperwork back to you, and then you fill it out with all your name, address, everything, and then it's on you to mail that into Bass Life. Um, if it's 8 to 9 pounds, there's a fee which is listed on the certificate. If it's so that's 8 to 8.99. Then 9 to 9.99 is Bass Life pays 50% of 8 to 8.99. They pay 75% from 9 to 9.99, and 100% for anything over 10. And those numbers are on the certificate. I don't remember exactly how much it is, but if you're over 10, you just send the paperwork in, and they'll get you set up and contact you and say, hey. They might ask you for some dimensions if you didn't write them on there. Make sure you fill the paperwork out. And if you have to pay because of one of the percentages, just include a check with that, and they'll do the same thing. They'll call, let you know they got it, and they'll get it and works. Now they're made over in Texas, so it takes a little bit of time. They're much faster than in the past. It used to take about a year to get your replica, but now it's down to about 3 months.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, so, in full disclosure, I'm helping out resecure the domain names and rebuilding the website. That's a long story, of course. But the picture that I've got up there, that's, I call him Little Andy Ebert. He's not very little anymore. The boy's taller than I am now. But that was his 1067 that he caught in one of the high school tournaments back in 2018.
I remember that fish. That was beautiful.
Beautiful fish. And that boy, he was just grinning from ear to ear. That whole weigh-in with that big fish. So, all right, well, good. I'm glad to clear that up. And folks, you can go to basslifeassociates.org or look up Bass Life Associates on Facebook. And as this progresses and things are going well and Bass Life can do some fundraising now, we're going to start building this back out and get all the information up there. And that way, it's easy for people to get their fish weighed in. And so, one other thing, too, though, is that Bass Life is involved in the fish hatcheries and all that. So you want to spend a minute and talk about that?
Sure. The hatchery, it's a sore subject with some people. You talk to some people, they don't like the Florida strains. Some people love the Florida strains. I guess it comes down to, do you like to catch numbers or do you like to catch big fish? Florida strain's all about big fish. But the hatchery, we don't actually grow the fish at the hatchery here. They just raise them past the very young stage. So it's more of a incubation period, if you will. The Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries gives the Cross Lake Hatchery the fish, and then they raise them up, and then they have to put them wherever Wildlife and Fisheries says to put them. But Bass Life helps pay to raise those and keep the hatchery up and running. It takes quite a bit of maintenance to keep the ponds working, the docks around the ponds, the aerators, everything that goes into it, keep the facility running. And then, of course, we store stuff. They allow us to store stuff out there. That's right. Where the tanks are kept that you might see at the tournaments and different things.
Yeah, I know with the high school league, we have an agreement with y'all to help provide that tank, because the high school league's big enough that it's hard to weigh in, like their tournaments on Bistineau. The high school league, and now even the junior league is large enough. We have to weigh in at like First Baptist and Houghton.
Yeah, that's awesome.
To have a parking lot. So having that fish tank there is great, because then we can keep the fish alive and keep them healthy and then transport them all back to the lake. So that works out pretty good.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of interesting that you mentioned the Florida strain, because I was talking to Jeff Sibley, who's, one of the main biologists for our region for the wildlife and fisheries. And Jeff kind of educated me. He said, there are no 100% Florida strain fish in any of these lakes. I mean, other than the fingerlings when they're released, okay, which a certain large percentage of those get eaten, but a certain percentage survive. He said, but the goal is to keep, and I'm probably saying the numbers wrong, Jeff, so if you watch this, forgive me. But I think he said they try to keep it around, I want to say it was 20%, somewhere in that range, Florida strain. And so when they do these stockings, they're not trying to stock for pure Floridas. They're trying to stock to keep the Florida strain up, because the northern strain, which is still the dominant strain, will take back over and basically, for lack of a better term, dilute the Florida genetics back down.
Oh, absolutely. I wish I'm pretty sure I'll have to look it up. Anyway, last year, or I say that, it's probably been, I don't know if it was pre-COVID or not. Man, getting old is not for, for great for mine. But he did Jeff and then all the folks out there at the facility, and uh, they did a thing for tournament directors. Everybody could come out. And it was their way of saying, hey, we want you guys to give us some information
Right.
of all your tournaments so that we can plug it in and figure out all these neat stats. And so it was just a year ago because they just came out with all that information and gave it to all the tournament directors. But in that presentation, they talked a lot about the Florida strain and what the goal was, and where the average fisherman has a very poor understanding of what that goal is. And like you were saying, it is not, their stocking the Florida strain is not to create a lake with all Florida strain in it. In order to do that, they would have to start over,
Right.
completely kill a lake off or start with a new lake. But just to bring those genetics up, and I'm with you, I don't remember the numbers, 20% sounds about right. They have trouble making it, but they're trying to keep that percentage up in the individual fish so that they have the possibility of reaching those bigger numbers, weights, stronger
Right.
fish. So,
Yeah. All right. So let's move on into an upcoming event. Let me get my screen set up here and I'll flip us over. So, because you keep track of a lot of the tournaments going on around here, and like we were talking about, there is a lot of them. But we got one coming up, like we were talking about, this should be this Saturday. I think that's the 28th, right?
yeah, it sure is.
Okay, and so just to let everybody know, and folks, for those of you that are just listening, or if you're on mobile, I realize that that's hard to see. I will put a link in the show description once we get through. I'll revise that or edit it. But if you go to pickitford.com and click on fundraisers, that'll take you to this page. And you'll see a registration for the Reelin for the Kids coming up May the 28th. Again, that's this Saturday. And so you can click on that to get some more information and get registered. So I'm going to bring us to that page, and I'll kind of hit the highlights of it. But Mike, why don't you kind of tell us what this is, what it's about, what's going on, and kind of give us some of the details.
Okay, I don't want to get too long-winded. I do on this one because it's again dear to my heart. Um, it's all about the foster kids in Northwest Louisiana, raising money for them. This organization, Picket Forward, they do a lot of things. They do some stuff far-reaching into other countries, and they just do a lot of stuff. But this particular tournament is for the local foster kids. About 4 years ago, we ended up raising our grandchildren, and in that they run us through the state, run us through the gamut of the foster program, and we had to go to all the courses and do all the different things. And in all that, we've seen that it's very difficult for the children. Fortunate, our grandchildren didn't have too much trouble because they had us, but there is a lot of kids out there that just need help, and that's what this organization does. So they came to us. I mean, it was God's plan. I like to say it brought us all together at one time. I got all these connections. They had this idea. We put it all together. Had our first tournament, and we raised about $5,000. I don't remember. It was a pretty good chunk of money, but it's gotten to be more and more. We've got a lot more community involvement. So that's
Yeah.
where it came from and what it does.
Definitely a good organization and a good reason to come out and help raise funds. We got a question. So our good friend Mr. Paul Funk from Funkbuster Baits says, Mike, do we have to check in the morning of? So do you know what the procedure is for the tournament morning itself?
Well, and no, you do. No, you don't have to. First tournament, we made everybody come and get a little string, put it on their trolling motor, and we thought that was a neat idea. And then the guys that had to drive to Earl G but wanted to go launch it, Tucker's, it was like, wow, So no, if you're paid up, you can go fish. Start first cast is at 6, quit fishing at 3, get the weigh inside at 3:30. If it's too hot and you want to come in early, I think they're going to start serving the jambalaya about 2:30.
Wow, that's what time I need to get there, right about 2:30 if I'm not fishing. So
There you go.
and looks like we got some pretty good prizes and stuff. Am I reading that right? Is it Dobbins rods given to the first 100 teams?
Yes, and that's where I was saying you get paid for fishing on this one.
Wow.
It's 100. If you sign up through this website, it's $160 a team, and then you get two Dobbins rods that value out together. It's $180. So you make $20 right out the gate for signing up. Then you get your free lunch, and you got a shot at $1,500 guaranteed.
Wow. And it looks like biggest bass over 10 pounds is $5,000. And that's sponsored by, looks like one of the local attorneys, Kyle Robinson.
Yeah. He fished the tournament last year, and he come up to the scales to weigh his fish, just as we had a 988 weighed in. So
Uh,
he did. He had done it last year. It almost got beat. He actually wants to see it get beat so that he can pay it out.
yeah.
He would be very excited if somebody could do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So again, folks, go to, let me make sure I say the website name. Go to pickettford.com and then click on fundraisers, and you'll see the information there. And of course, helping out the orphans and foster kids and all, it's always a good cause. They need all the help that we can give them. And so, yeah, we would definitely encourage you to go fish that if you don't already have plans for Saturday. Or, like in my case, I'll be helping the junior league, and we're fishing, or they are. I'm helping out with the weigh-in and stuff. They're fishing at Bistineau this weekend. And so,
Yeah, that's kind of a catch-22 because that's another great cause. Anything that gets kids on the water, I'm all for it.
yeah, but I got to say, I'd like to see everybody out there to help support the junior league and all that. But this is definitely a good cause, so I kind of have to lean a little bit towards the adults that aren't being a boat captain. If
There you go.
you're just looking for something to fish as an adult this weekend, then definitely take a look at this one.
Come take your chances at $5,000.
Yeah, certainly doesn't hurt.
Everybody that fishes cattle is fishing for a 10-pounder. That's a fact. So
Yeah.
take your chances.
All right, so let me double check my notes here and kind of get myself caught back up, and let's see what I've got on my list to talk about next. Let's see here. Let's see. So we talked about the Reelin in for the kids. We talked about the newsletter. We've already talked about Bass Life. If you want to hang out for a little bit longer, you want to talk about the license fees with the Wildlife and Fisheries? I don't know what your schedule is, or if y'all are about to eat dinner. Or...
I've got probably about another 15 minutes or so. And yeah, I haven't. I just read about that. I mean, I knew I was expecting everything coming. But yeah, I'll hang out. I'm sure I would definitely have some input.
All right, so let me get my screens ready here, and we'll talk about these license fees. And I got to be honest, I'm not 100% educated on them and what all it's going to entail. But let's take a look and see. So I'm bringing up on the screen. This is from the Wildlife and Fisheries website. This is the recreational license fees. And looks like, I guess this is starting June 1st because that's when the licenses, is it June 1st or July 1st? I think it's June 1st. That's when the licenses normally expire or renew or whatever. They've got it on their website listed. Let me see if I can get this zoomed in right. But looks like now, all right, the hook and line or roadside crabbing license is $5 for resident and military and students. Basic fishing license, so that's going to apply to the majority of us. And, they package this deal where now it's whether you're running hoop nets or whatever else. You get all this stuff now, even
Right.
if that's not how you fish. Hey, Trent Toops, good to see you here. Glad that you joined in. We're talking about something that makes us all happy, and that's paying the license fees. But it looks like the basic fishing license is $17 now.
That's up. What was 1050 or 950?
I want to say it was $9.50, but yeah, it was right there at $10 before, so it's not quite double, but almost. But the justification is, well, yeah, but you don't have to go buy extra licenses for this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I mean, and they argue. I agree, but somebody would argue, well, I didn't do all that other stuff. I didn't need that license anyway. So I don't know. Being in the military, I've been all over. So California, when I left, I don't know what it is now, but when I left, the license was $55. Which California is California, I understand, but at
Right.
$17, it's still not much. I do agree with the general angler around here. They said, yeah, I don't mind paying more, Mike, but what's it going for? What are they
Yeah.
going to do with it?
Well, that's my biggest thing. And look, I don't have anything against being checked by the game warden. I don't mind them doing their job. I don't mind, paying a license fee. And I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. But as long as I can see some progress. But when we compare, and I hate to say it, we really shouldn't even compare it. When we compare what we have over here as far as fisheries and management compared to what we see going on in Texas, it's daylight and dark. I gladly pay my out-of-state year-long Texas license fee. I don't even pay attention what the fee is. Boom, put the credit card number in, done.
Right.
And it's much more. I think it's about $60-something or whatever for out-of-state. But when I see that $17 there, it's like, man, really? And look, I got to give the biologists and all that and the guys on the ground credit. Jeff and all those guys that are putting together that LA trip report, with the tournaments, they really want to do the right thing. But I hate to say it, it's the political side of our wildlife and fisheries, and I don't know. We'll see.
Well, and then when you say political, I get caught up in these conversations over Bistineau about raising and lowering the lake and the what it takes to make that happen, why it happens, and then how political that is, or even hunting. I mean, we're talking fishing here, but I've talked to people that were at the meetings when they were determining when what duck seasons would be, and what goose seasons would be, and different things, and it came down to senators and representatives and stuff making these decisions based on when their vacation times were. You know, that's ridiculous. That shouldn't happen.
Oh, yeah. I won't get on my soapbox too much, but I've got another Facebook Live that I do called Bossier Watch, and we covered that extensively months ago, specifically about duck hunting, because the guy that does that show with me, Duke Lowry, he's real big into Delta waterfowl and duck hunts a lot. And anyway, we got way off on that tangent on the show. We won't hear tonight, but I would just say to our politicians that may come across this show or whatever, nothing against the biologists and even the enforcement guys on the ground, but as far as the political side and the bureaucratic side of it, something's got to give. You guys got to do better. Texas is it would take us 30 years to even try to catch up to where Texas is right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, and Texas is building new lakes, and you got boat arc, and you got so many people just chomping at the bit to fish that lake. And around here, if somebody opened a new lake, how long before it's ruined? That would be what they'd be thinking.
Yeah, and Paul says compare our prices to other states. Yeah, what you mentioned earlier. Even as a resident, I understand their frustration, but I agree with you 100%, Paul. But it's kind of a chicken and the egg. Okay, so do we pay more fees and just trust that they're going to do the right thing? And of course, I'm coming from the bass fishing angle, and start building our fisheries up like they need to be and all that. Do we trust them to do that? I don't know. It's a tough call.
Right.
I did want to point out, real quick, not to interrupt you, but I pulled up the website. So these changes go into effect June 1st of 2022. Recreational licenses purchased on or after June 1 of 2022 will be valid for 365 days from the date of purchase. These licenses will no longer follow the July 1 to June 30 year, which is one good thing. It was always stupid. If my wife, if she waited till April or March or May or whatever to go fishing, she would have to buy her license and pay the full license fee, which granted was about $10 or whatever it was. But then she had to turn around and get a new one right there at the end of June. So at least they're going again, compared to Texas. When you buy your license in Texas, it's good for 365 days.
Right. Well, that just means you got to be smart.
So
remember when you bought your license last.
Yeah, no kidding. Now I will say this too. Let me see if I can get this pulled up here. So, folks, for those of you that don't know, that LA Wallet app on your that you can get on your iPhone and I think on Android too is actually pretty handy. It's the law that it is valid in the state of Louisiana. Okay, so I'm not saying you can go over to Texas and Texas will look at your LA Wallet Louisiana fishing license on Caddo and honor the reciprocal agreement. They probably will, but I'm not going to guarantee that. But you can go into that LA Wallet app and add in your license. It automatically pulls the information and all that, and so you'll have it on. You always take a picture of mine anyway, and keep it on my phone too. The only difference is with the tags for deer hunting and all that, you still have to have the paper tags. And oh, by the way, they recommend that you carry a Ziploc bag now because they don't print the nice little waterproof, tags for deer. You literally have to print your own paper, which is
Right.
That's why we can't trust them, Paul, with the extra money. That right there is it in a nutshell. All right.
Exactly. There's so many things, but that's a very quick, good point right there.
All right. So I'm not gonna get you in too much political hot water with me on my soapbox tonight.
Hey, I'm the one over here on the backside of the Benton Bridge, so
Oh
I'm
yeah, that's right.
political fires as I can right now.
Yeah, you're over there suffering on the other side
Oh
of
yeah,
the bridge.
it's supposed to have been done 6 weeks ago.
All right, so I want to share a little bit of fishing information. How much longer you got, Mike?
About 10 minutes.
Okay, good. So I'm going to share some fishing tips with folks, and I want to talk about, sharing information in general. I want to get your opinion on. Our opinions may not agree, all right? But, when I started fishing again about 3 or 4 years ago after I got involved with the high school kids and all that, I fish a few tournaments. I donate plenty of money,
Mm-hmm.
But I like the competition. But the other thing I like to do is I like to show people or teach people how to do it. Granted, I fish by myself a lot, but I like to show people, especially, it goes back to that growing the sport thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like to grow the sport or do what I can in my own, small way to help grow the sport, whether it's helping with the high school kids, the junior kids, these fundraising events, things like that, or sharing out information on Facebook, live videos and all that. So, but sometimes I kind of get into hot water for that by certain fishermen, and y'all know who you are. I share it out. Let's see, here's one of the pictures. This is from this weekend. So, if you follow my Facebook page or follow the Caddo Lake Fishing Report Facebook group, you've already seen these, so no surprises here. But this was a fish that I caught on a frog. Look, it's no surprise I throw a frog most of the time. Like 75% of my casts have a frog at the end of the line.
Right.
But I don't mind sharing this stuff out. Now, look, folks, the truth is, in my report, I put that I caught them in hog wallow. And then I said I ran up the river a little bit. I ran up the bayou or whatever I said. Now, the truth is I did catch most of the fish that my wife and I caught Sunday in hog wallow. And hog wallow is not a secret spot. I was in there one day and I counted 12 boats within 100 yards of me. 200 yards at the most.
Right.
So I don't mind sharing information out. Now, I do have a lot of, try to have a lot of etiquette while fishing, So, like I said, if you're fishing a spot, I roll up there and I want to fish the same area, but you're already there, I'm going to yield to you, or at least say, hey, Mike, you seem like you're headed off to the right. You mind if I take this left area over here? Were you planning on fishing that? Or something like that. But what's your opinion on that? I mean, how much information do you share?
I used to be super secretive, and I guess that was back in the beginning. I mean, my first experiences with tournaments and stuff were my dad taking me out fishing, and we'd fish some tournaments and stuff. And we always, if another boat drove too close, we had to put the rods down, and we had to put them all away before we went to weigh in and all this stuff. It did. I started fishing on my own and doing my own thing, different tournaments, and listen to the dock talk, and so and so's catching them doing this or doing that, and you go out. The river was a great example of it. The guys would say, fish the cedar trees right there in front of the old Clarks. Get out there with a brush hog and throw it at the cedar trees. I would do that over and over and over. Wouldn't get bit. Go throw a white crankbait on the levee. I'd go do that over and over and over again. You can tell me exactly what you're doing, You can show me where you're doing it, but I'm not going to wiggle the bait the right way or, have the confidence in what you're doing to catch your fish. So I feel the same way about, I tell everybody, there are two frogs in my boat. And I'm like you. I throw them, and I know you throw them in February, and I throw them through December, and I know you do the same thing. But
Right.
I've got a black one and a white one.
Yeah.
And when they ask me, what color frog are you using? I'm throwing a black frog. You
Yeah.
know, I'm throwing a black frog. I have no heart in telling people what I'm doing, and I've been followed before, and that kind of gripes me a little bit, but that's their integrity, and they got to live with that. But and as far as pulling, we talked before about these are cypress tree lakes for public water. Just be courteous. You pull up on a tree line, and if I'm going right, you're going left. Hey, we're all good. And if
Yeah.
not, give each other some space.
And I'm the first one. I tell people all the time, in my Facebook posts, and all, hey, if you see me on the water, just stop and say hi. I don't mind. Now, if I'm throwing at a point or something and you roll up on the point to stop and tell me hi, we might have a few choice words there for a minute.
Right.
Again, have a little etiquette, but I'm one of those where I take the opposite tact, because I agree with you 100%. And Paul said it in the comments as well. Nobody's going to fish the same, and I could tell you right where I caught that fish, and that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go over there and catch another fish, or the same fish is even going to be there. I mean, this right here, the Angry Verge, I talked about it last show. I decided to throw it again Sunday because I just love the way it sounds. It's loud and it just gives off a different sound anyway, and I like having the frog hooks on it. There's pros and cons to it, but anyway, so there it is right there. Black Angry Verge, 3/8 ounce. I think last show I said 3 ounce. There's no way it was that heavy. But anyway, 3/8 ounce. Somebody called me on that one. But anyway, there it is right there in the fish's mouth. Now, am I going to tell you exactly where I caught that fish? No. But I can't stop you from following me. Again, we might have a few choice words at some point, but I can't stop you from following me. It's a public lake. You can legally roll up right beside me and fish.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, for me, if you're wearing me out, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. One, how deep? I don't know where you were at. It's a cypress tree lake. That's, your spots were just as good as my spots. I've been fishing them for 20 years. I've got spots, but I'd like to know how deep you were fishing, maybe what the watercolor you had, and if there was vegetation. That's all I need to know. I'll go find my own fish.
Yeah, and again, with me, it's pretty easy. Look, I'm not running live scope. I'm running a couple of small little humminbird helixes. And they do just fine because I stay shallow. Most of the time, my trolling motor is churning mud, even in the winter months. And I mean, let's face it, folks, I fish Caddo a lot. And on Caddo, more often than not, you're in shallow water.
Oh, yeah.
And these fish will stay shallow. You're right. I've caught them in 50, caught them on a frog in 53-degree water in a foot deep on a frog. And they were annihilating, like turning the frog inside out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
now,
had him doing that to me one time. It was so fun. I had to take little video clips. I would send them to my fishing partner while he was at work.
yeah, it's just a blast. Now, I've talked about the whopper plopper a couple of times, and here we go. This fish was in hog wallow, period. All right. I did blur the picture, but I didn't do that on purpose. It's because I put it in portrait mode. That way I get depth of field. I'm not doing it because I'm really trying to hide the trees, although I know folks that know every tree in the lake.
Yeah, my partner swears he does. He kills me by how I know exactly where they caught that fish from. Brian, I don't care.
Yeah. But look, I basically have two colors of whopper ploppers that I throw. I throw that white one or a slightly bone colored or black.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much the same way with a frog. I have black frogs. I've got 4, 5, or 6 different colors of frogs, but the main one I throw, I love that red ear. But that's mainly just because it's a confidence thing with me. I mean, the fact of the red ear is the majority of the bottom of it is black, and the fish can't see the top unless they're jumping out of the water and pouncing on it. That's rare.
Right.
It's not like they go, look, that frog's yellow on top,
No, absolutely.
It's the bottom color that matters with the frog. But anyway, so there it is, folks. Again, if you follow the page or whatever you saw me post this or whatever, but there's the Whopper Plopper, there's the Angry Verge. If you've got some questions on how I was throwing it, let me know in the comments and ask a question. But look, with the Whopper Plopper, I slow roll it. I slow roll it like I'm slow rolling a spinnerbait. I want it barely chugging most of the time. Now, the Angry Verge sometimes fishing up there because the Salvinia is starting to come back in, and there's lots of other grass starting to get thick up there. So like the Angry Verge, buzzbaits, and stuff like that, sometimes I'll kind of rip them to skim them across that. Look, you're not going to outrun the fish.
Yeah.
If the fish wants it, he's going to get it.
Yeah, a perfect example was Sunday or Saturday when we were on Bistineau. I skipped a frog underneath the tree, and it just a typical skip, and that fish come out from underneath that tree and smashed that frog before it stopped. Yeah. And it all happened so fast, like I couldn't get the hook set on it.
Yeah, I swear they can see above the water somehow from under the water, because I've done that too. I did it one day. My son and I were fishing. We were way up in the shallow water and all that, starting to get dark. So I put the trolling motor on high and just trolling us back out till we got, a little bit of water depth and trim the motor down. But anyway, so I'm on high 5 on my trolling motor, and we're just skimming across there throwing a wake, and I've got the frog, and I'm just zinging the frog ahead of me and just zinging it across the water, 7.5 to 1 ratio reel, and just bringing him, faster than a buzz bait. And he's like, there's no way you're going to catch a fish. And he no more got the words out of his mouth. Wham! One about 3.5 pounds just slammed it.
Yeah.
And
sometimes that can be the pattern. And it's generally not I don't want to say it that way. It's not a pattern that'll hold up across the lake. It can be one that's just the epitome of a reaction strike. That fish probably would have never hit anything else except for something moving that fast.
Yep, I think you are correct. Okay, so I want to show off one more thing, and then we've been on here for about an hour, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And look, I really appreciate your time tonight, and
thanks for having me.
Everybody that's watching. So I'm going to show one more thing. I want to try to start showing a little product or something that I use, every few shows that is just simple but comes in handy. So it's no secret that I run a late 90s model Champion 203. It needs a little cosmetic work, but I fish on Caddo too much, so I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, so and look, I used to build boats. I'm fully capable of installing, my own LED lights and wiring them and all that. That's not the problem. But this little pack of lights is like $10 or $11, something like that. You can usually get them at Lowe's. You can order them off of Amazon, and I've got some on my boat now that have been there for 2 years, and it's just a little flip light, and it's waterproof. And it's got a sticky thing. So like I stuck a couple of these on my gunnel, and so if I need a light on at night, instead of having to hit all of them, or early morning, I can just reach over there and flip that. I even took these and mounted them on the underside of my lids, so I didn't have to run any wiring up, through the hinges and up on the lids, which is always awkward, even though I've got interior lighting. And these little lights are like I said, they're like $10 or $12, something like that, for this entire pack. They're waterproof. And like I said, I've got some of them that have lasted for about a year because, I flip them on. And, of course, the one thing is you got to remember to flip them back off. But they got a little battery in. You can't change the battery out. But you just buy another pack of lights, and they're handy.
For $1.50 a piece, that ain't bad at all.
Easy replacement. So anyway, there's your little tip or trick, folks. If you need some interior lighting, but you're on a budget, and you don't want to run a bunch of wiring, there you go right there.
Well, that's with 2 gallons of gas right now.
Exactly. No kidding. All right. So I think we have covered everything on the list. Again, Mike, I appreciate your time. You're welcome on the show anytime something comes up. You want to try to help get the word out. We've had about 10 people watching. It'll probably end up getting 600, 1,000 views, in the next few days or whatever. So hopefully we'll keep building up on that. But like I said, anytime you want to get the word out or anything like that, just let me know. You're welcome to come on.
Well, thanks for having me, Rex. I was kind of caught off guard a little bit when you reached out to me. And I was like, man, I need to do this. So I've had, it's just life. Some days when it's just like, wow, I don't know if I can be ready by then or not. And then you just got to make it happen. So I was glad you reached out to me. I enjoyed this.
Good deal. Well, I enjoyed it too, and I look forward to seeing you on the water. I probably won't see you Saturday because I'll be going to hang out with the junior kids, but good luck on the tournament Saturday. Hope it turns out to be a huge success and raises some funds for those kids who need it.
All right. Well, thank you, Rex.
All right, I'm going to hit the finish button, folks. Appreciate y'all watching. Just remember, you can go to the outdoor.news. No .com in it, just the outdoor.news. I've got the website going. I've got the YouTube feed and the Facebook feed embedded in that. If you need something, just reach out to me on Facebook. If you got my phone number, shoot me a text or whatever, and we will see you next Monday evening.